Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we've got so much content to cover. We've got 19 balance changes, a lot of big buffs and nerfs as well. We've got some broken hypercharges. We've got a lot of map changes and 5v5 to go through as well. So just before we get into things, make sure to check out my live stream. I'll be doing a giveaway for Headless Rider Stu, a few of those skins, and also I'm just doing a watch party for ESL, which of course all the top teams in the world. It's just really exciting, so check that out. But now let's jump into the balance changes, starting off with Colt then. So Colt is receiving an 18% buff to his reload speed. So before, it would take 1.7 seconds to fully reload, well, just one ammo bar, and then now it takes 1.4 seconds. So that's a big buff to his reload speed. And also when you actually have the reload speed gear as well, it goes from 1.4 seconds to 1.2 seconds. So Colt's going to be reloading a lot. This is going to definitely help him out a lot. I like the avenue they're taking. We're not going down the old routes of just giving him a broken gadget and then have fun. I think it's going to make him a lot more viable outside of Heist as well. I'm excited to try this one out. And also it means he's going to cycle his hypercharge a lot more. I'm excited for this change. So the next buff is with Amber. She's receiving a 10% attack damage buff. Normally her flame would deal, well, one little flame would deal 400 damage every single time. Now it's all the way up to 440. This is a big buff in my opinion. Amber for the longest time I thought was pretty weak, especially with all the hypercharges added. She was just way too vulnerable, so this attack damage buff would definitely help her out, and I think she'll at least become meta again on her strongest maps, because previously she wasn't even good on maps like Ring of Fire. So I think it'll definitely spring some life into the meta. Definitely like a B or maybe even A tier brawler with this buff. So next up on the buff list we have Bo, and he's receiving a 17% attack damage buff, which is insane. It's going from 1,200 per arrow to 1,400 per arrow. Bo, it feels like he always becomes decent when he gets these attack buffs, which he has previously, and then he slowly starts to fall off again. So I think Bo could easily become like an A tier brawler with this buff. We saw it last time. It can happen again. The biggest problem with Bo though is he doesn't have a hypercharge, and still he struggles with really aggressive brawlers in his face, but this is definitely going to make him a lot more viable. So next up on the buff list we have Ash. He's receiving a 4% HP buff. It's going from 10,400 HP to 10,800. Only a 400 increase in his health, which isn't really going to do too much. The problem with Ash is that, again, he doesn't have a hypercharge, and all of his hypercharge brawlers just shut him down so quickly. He just can't keep up. I don't think it's going to help him out whatsoever. He's still going to be like a D or C tier brawler easily. Next up on the buff list we have a Gust buff right here. His damage is being increased by 6%, going from 1,880 to 2,000. So only like a 120 increase in his damage, but Gust has been needing it, especially again with all his hypercharges. His damage has really fallen off, but I think this might catapult him back into like the knockout and bounty meta. We'll have to wait and see, but I still get the feeling with all these assassins getting hypercharges, you know, Fang, Edgar, just so many aggressive brawlers, he's still not really going to be the best in his meta. Next up on the buff list we have Chester, and he's receiving a 6% buff to his HP. It's going from 7,000 HP to 7,400, so just a 400 increase, which again isn't really going to do too much. But Chester has always been a little bit underrated. I think he thrives a little bit more in this type of meta because he can feed his super from all of these tanks and all of these assassins, but still I feel like he's lacking that hypercharge, which is going to be pushing him up the meta. So for now he's still going to be a pretty weak brawler. So next up on the buff list we have two buffs to Janet. Right now she's like an F tier or D tier brawler, really at the bottom of the rankings, but these buffs definitely will help her out. So the damage has received a 4% buff, going from 1,880 to 1,960. So only a small buff to her damage, but she definitely needed it, especially with all this aggression. It's just made her pretty weak, and slowly giving her back her damage that she used to have might make her really strong. And also she's receiving a buff to her supercharge rate. It's going from 7 hits to 6 hits to get her super, so a 14% buff. I think this is going to make Janet a lot more viable. We're not talking S tier again, but definitely I could see her become like a B or A tier brawler. Again, I think all of these, well, Fang in particular, is just going to make her too vulnerable. So next up on the buff list we have Pearl. So she was in a weird spot where she was in between the slow and normal movement speed, and now she's been buffed up to the normal movement speed. I think this will make Pearl a lot more appealing. Her play rates are pretty low, even though I think she's an okay brawler, but she's pretty strong in the right hands, especially on passive game modes like Knockout, where you can charge up your heat and deal a lot of damage. But this will just make it a lot easier. The reason why I never played Pearl, especially in Power League, was because she was just an easy hit. Like slow movement brawlers just aren't really appealing. So now she has a normal movement speed. I think she'll be boosted quite a lot in the rankings. So the final buff with this update, we have a buff to Surge. So he's been struggling for a while. He's receiving a 7% buff to his HP, going from 5,600 to 6,000. So this is going to make Surge a little bit more appealing. Again, I don't think it's going to make him like the best brawler in the game or even towards the A tier, but it's definitely going to help him out and maybe become a more, I don't know, off-meta pick, because he was just straight up unusable in competitive. I still think, again, the problem is that he just doesn't deal enough damage. Like, when any brawler pops a hypercharge, they get a shield boost, and Surge really struggles to take him down. But for now, I think it'll give him a little bit of a healthy boost. So now we're moving on to the nerfs then, and this first one is tasty. This is the one that's been making me rage so much. Charlie. Everyone has been talking about her for weeks now. It's been painful. Like, I was so motivated to play the game, and then Charlie just happened. One of the most broken brawlers of all time. But anyways, she's receiving 4 nerfs, which I think is definitely going to turn her down a bit. I still feel like she's going to be strong, but nowhere near as broken as before. So the first nerf is to her basic cooldown. So if you guys don't know, every brawler has like an attack delay. You think of like Carl in the past, for example. He used to be able to spam against the wall really quick. That got nerfed. And the same is happening with Charlie. So she's receiving a 100% nerf to her basic cooldown. Right now, it's 250 milliseconds, and it's been up to 500 milliseconds. So basically, this means you can't just spam out auto-aim attacks, especially when a brawler is close to you. Can't do that anymore. That was so cheesy with Charlie. She could cycle super so fast, and she could basically out-damage every brawler in the game with this mechanic. So you're definitely going to feel the difference with that one. The next nerf is with her super duration. It's going from 7 seconds to 5 seconds. So again, a really nice nerf. Like, you didn't need the super to last like 7 seconds. Like, I can't believe it was even 10 in the past. That is just brain dead. I can't believe that was even in the game. But that's a 29% nerf. We next have a supercharge rate nerf as well, going from 5 hits to 6 hits. So that is pretty good. So she's going to cycle a super less, and it's going to be less effective. So I like to see that. And then the last nerf is with her gadget spiders. The HP per spider is going from 2,200 to 1,400. So a lot of nerfs to digest. All in all, I think she's going to be still a pretty annoying brawler to face off against, but nowhere near as toxic. I see it being a good nerf. I really like these changes. So next up on the nerf list, we have Lou. So his supercharge rate is increasing. It's going from 7 hits to 8 hits, which I think this might make Lou, especially without hypercharge, a lot worse for the normal player. But, you know, eventually everyone's going to get that hypercharge Lou. But yeah, it's going to definitely make his hypercharge a lot less effective as well, because you're not going to be able to cycle it with the supercharge gear now. So with the supercharge gear with Lou, he's going from 6 hits to 7 hits. So it won't take 2 pieces of ammo to cycle. You won't be able to just throw like 2 free hypercharge supers around the map. It's going to make him a lot less viable, but I still see him being a strong pick with his hypercharge. So next up on the nerf list, we have Spike, and his mythic gear is getting a 40% nerf. It's going from a 50% slow increase to a 30% slow increase. So I think the reason why Spike was so good is because when he popped the hypercharge, he had basically a Lou super like even better, because you just could not move within that big super. So I'm glad they've changed this mythic gear. A little bit too toxic for me. It just basically meant, well, you pretty much hit a Spike super every single time, and you were able to cycle so quickly because of this. You could never escape his super, so I like this change. Next up on the nerf list, we have Rosa. Her HP is being nerfed by 7%. It's going from 10,800 to 10,000. So I was a little bit surprised about this nerf. Like, a HP nerf to a tank is pretty rare, but I think it's definitely a welcome one. Rosa's just been running rampant in the meta, especially with the hypercharge. I feel like this will definitely put her in a little bit more of a balanced state. You'll be able to pinch her out a little bit more effectively. But the fact of the matter is, like, not much has really changed. She's able to cycle her super still so fast, and with the hypercharge, I still think she's going to be an incredibly strong pick in this meta. Next up on the nerf list, we have Buster. So the change I wish for has happened. So slow-mo replay has removed the slow effect. So I think that's a really good component with Buster. Like, the slow was just really strong. What you could do, literally, of course, Buster has one of the largest ranges as a tank. He was able just to slow people so easily, and removing that effect just makes it so even when you get grabbed with Buster, you can actually maybe escape. So it's a lot less risky to pop that gadget now. With Buster, you have to make sure that you're able to pull them really close. So I really like this change, but Buster's still going to be pretty strong in my opinion. So now moving on to the final balance change, and it is with Nanny. Nanny's HP has been nerfed by 8%, going from 5,200 to 4,800. So I think this is a good change for Nanny, because I was a little bit reluctant to nerf her damage again, because, you know, Nanny was just this kind of trash brawler really, outside of like bounty and all these passive game modes. But ever since the damage buff, she's been able to shine in other game modes. It's been nice. You know, Nanny is a high skill cap brawler, but nerfing the HP, I think it's just going to make her a little bit more vulnerable. You can't just walk up the map now and just shred everyone down. So I really like this change, but I still think Nanny is going to be a top tier brawler. So now we're going to be ranking all of the new hypercharges from the very worst all the way up to the very best, just to give you guys an indication on how strong I think they'll be. But when the update drops, of course, I'll do a video on that. So the first one is going to be Miko. So with this brawler, I can't actually show any footage, only from the Brawl Talk, because we'll have to do that in a future sneak peek, so make sure to subscribe for that. But anyways, I think this will be the worst one just for this reason alone. So the main reason is because his super lasts a long time. I don't know how long it is, but it definitely looks like it lasts longer than 5 seconds, and the hypercharge only lasts 5 seconds. So if you pop that hypercharge with your super, essentially hypercharge is going to run out by the time you land. So I don't think the hypercharge is actually that good, right? So for me, I think it's by far the worst out of all of them. Okay, so jumping into the 5th best new hypercharge, you guys probably would disagree with me on this one. It is Crow's hypercharge utility knives. So I'm not too sure how many times you're going to get this hypercharge in a game. You know, Crow actually takes a long time to charge up his super, and you have to build up 2.5 of those to get his hypercharge. So that's the biggest drawback about it, but I think it has insane potential. Especially, I think you just play Crow a little bit better, like different. I think you'll have to use like the shield gear, for example. I think you might even switch over to the defense booster gadget, because the way you want to use this hypercharge, you want to get close to someone and then use your super, because the knives will return back to you like a boomerang. But I think it's going to be especially strong in heist. I think it can deal up to like 50k damage, which is more than 50% of the heist save just deleted with one super. But again, the biggest problem is getting that hypercharge. It's going to take so long with Crow, so I think that's by far the biggest drawback, but it does have huge potential, especially for team wipes. So I'm interested to see where this one could land. This could quite easily be one of the better ones. We'll have to just wait and see how frequently you get the hypercharge. So moving into the 4th best new hypercharge, it is Leon's hypercharge called Limbo. So with this hypercharge, you still stay invisible even when you attack with Leon. So that's actually one of the biggest drawbacks to his super, right? You reveal your position as soon as you start attacking. So now you can just go ham, just spam the attack button all the time. Of course, it will reveal your position a little bit because you are attacking. But I think this is interesting because this might actually switch up the build with Leon. I'm interested to try out both star powers with this one. I think smoke trails could be insane with this hypercharge. Of course, you get a speed boost, and then you get the smoke trails speed boost as well. That could be insane. But then Invisi-Heal, you pair this with the mythic gear as well. I think there's huge potential with Leon. I don't think it's going to be game breaking, but it's definitely going to make him a lot more viable. I'm excited for this one. So moving into the 3rd best hypercharge out of all the new ones, it is Edgar's hypercharge called Outburst. So this has huge potential. This could leapfrog Edgar into the top of the meta, or it could just not really solve his problems. We'll have to wait and see, but it definitely has the potential in my opinion. You boost your super charge rate and your reload speed when you use this hypercharge, and of course you get a damage buff, a speed buff, and a shield buff. This has potential to be scary, and I think the most broken thing about it is that your Let's Fly gadget charges your hypercharge. I tried to communicate this to the dev team because I feel like it's going to be broken. Like, you literally can press Let's Fly 3 times and you get a free hypercharge, which is just insane to me. I think still the biggest problem with Edgar could just be the fact that you can still like knock him back and whatever else, but again, he has huge potential. This could break the game. We'll have to wait and see. So now moving on to the 2nd best new hypercharge, we have a Dynamite's hypercharge called Boomer. So this hypercharge I think is very strong. So the attack damage is boosted as well. Well, the super damage is boosted to 7,320 on its own, and then these dynamite sticks spam out after your super, so just kind of like a fidget spinner, and each one of those that hits deals 2,196 damage. So combined, if you hit your super and just one of those sticks that fly out, that's 9,500 damage, which can one-shot pretty much every single brawler in the game except for tanks. Like 13 brawlers in the game can't be one-shot one-shot by this. It's just absolutely insane. I'm really scared for this one. It's just so much damage. It really is just so much damage. Imagine if you can cycle your super as well. If you get a couple of these hypercharged supers, you're just going to get a full team wipe. And Dynamite already is pretty scary in the right hand, so I think this is going to be an insanely strong hypercharge. Okay, so now moving on to the most broken hypercharge that will ever be in the game. It is Fang's hypercharge. I normally don't like to overreact. I'm normally a little bit like on the fence with news type of stuff, but it's going to break the game. You probably saw my reaction yesterday on the Brawl Talk with it, and it's just really going to completely break the game in my opinion. So with this hypercharge super, you're able to go through walls and you also leave a trail of popcorn. So this popcorn deals damage and also charges up your hypercharge, so then it lasts longer as well if you hit someone. And the most broken thing about it is that the fresh kickstart powers actually charges up your hypercharge. So if you get a kill with your super, that charges up your hypercharge even faster, which is just crazy. I'm just so scared about this. And of course, if you're a Fang main, you know the biggest counter to you is walls, right? Like, if you're behind a wall, you're kind of safe from a Fang super, but you're not safe anymore. You can just bounce around the map, and of course, with Fang super, it automatically connects you to the next person. A wall would stop that, so in a way, you could kind of stay away from your teammates, so Fang wouldn't be able to chain. Now, you can't do that if they have a hypercharge. He's just going to be bouncing across people. Also, as well, the damage boost is going to scare me. So, normally does 2,400 damage with his super. If you have the hypercharge, it boosts it up to nearly 2,900, and then if the damage gear is active as well, this boosts it to 3,200. So just think of that fresh kick threshold. You're able to cycle supers like no man's business, and you're just going to be flying across the map. This is going to break the game. I'll be very surprised if it's not emergency nerfed. Yeah, you can just see my reaction. I'm kind of defeated because it looks like it's going to be appearing into the game. It's going to break the game. So now moving on to the last portion of the video, showing you guys all the map changes. You guys like to see this. It's a lot of map changes, so I'm not going to go through what's brand new, what's actually been removed as well. Just off the top of my head, I'm just going to go through and show you some of the maps that have been added in. So I believe this is a map returning. I'm not entirely sure, but I know it's a new environment, so I may as well show you guys. Open space, I think that's a brand new one. Well, not brand new one, but it's back in. Close call looks like an old map as well that's been re-added into the game. And stay in your lane, I think that's a brand new one, but very interesting one. Not really remember that one. And then you can see the 5v5 maps as well. These are actually look a lot better. This is going to be a really good gem grab map in my opinion. I tried out 5v5 by the way, and I really enjoyed it. Even against bots, I think it's going to offer some fresh new gameplays and new strategies. I'm so excited to try this out in the live build. I feel like people aren't hyping it up as much as it should. Also, this one is got a split gem mine, the left and the right, and there's like this slow area in the middle, which I'm not really too fond of, but we'll give it a try, see whether it's actually good. And then Snowflake's 5v5 map as well, 2 gem mines left and the right. I think this one would be a good map as well. And also a note that the 5v5 gem grab actually goes up to 20 gems when it's split into 2 gem mines, which is going to be pretty fun. So I'm not too sure about showdown, so I'll just go through most of these if you guys want to see the maps. I'm pretty familiar with most of these names, well, pretty much all of these names, but I don't play it enough to know the cycle of showdown. So again, I'll just show you guys. I think all of these are returning maps. I'm pretty aware of that. We see safe zone. I think bridge too far is a map returning. I mean, hopefully it's in the Power League rotation. I'll also pop that at the end of the video as well. Tornado Ring, I think, is returning. Riverbed looks like a new map, I think, or a very, very old map. I can't remember off the top of my head. Triple Dribble is returning, which is going to be pretty fun. I'm excited to see the return of that one. I think this is a returning map as well. I played that in the World Finals in 2019. Galaxy Arena, I'm excited about that. Encirclement is an okay map. We have Winter Party as well. That's definitely a returning map as well. There's a lot of bushes, which I'm scared about. They've removed a lot of the good Brawl maps as well. Not really fond of these Brawl changes. I guess they just want a lot of chaos. We see 3v3, well, 5v5, sorry. We've got Freezing Ripples, which in the middle is this kind of frozen area, which again, I guess it's seen as fun, but I just think it'll be pretty annoying to begin with. This one will probably be a really good one because it's only a small area of frozen lakes, whatever it's called. We also have a small frozen area here in the middle, which is going to be a little bit annoying, but I'm definitely excited to try that out. We have the Great Divide, which is a brand new map, I believe, and the same with Checkered. I mean, I don't know what to think of those maps. We'll have to try that out. New Perspective is, I think, already in the game, or it came back. I know Healthy Middle Ground is already in. Waters of Doom, I think I've seen that one before. Close Quarters Again, not too really familiar. And then we have Wipeout. We've got, of course, Snake Prairie returning. A Layer Bake. I think we already know that one. The Great Open. I think that's been a map I already know about. But then the 5v5 maps. We have this big slow area, which again, I'm really not excited to try out. I mean, I guess it's going to be a fun map, but that's not going to be competitive at all. Same with this one, this big slow area. I think that's going to be a little bit better. And then we have Frosty Tracks as well, this big slow area in the middle. Again, it's going to be okay, but I think the more competitive side is definitely going to be Gem Grab and Brawl Ball, in my opinion. And then the 4 maps for hunters, we have Trials and Tribulations, Hunting Season, True Trail, and then Omega. So that's a lot of map changes. You can pause whenever you need, but that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I'm also going to pop the Power League rotation on the screen as well, and there's a lot of changes to Power League, so a lot to really digest with this update. I'm excited, so much content to cover. Make sure to subscribe for future sneak peeks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.